Hello, Ted. How are you?
I am doing fine. I'm impressed with some of the things you're doing. You're putting together quite the little empire out there.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. You are following my social media profile on a regular basis. It's my pleasure.
I think we're hooked up on, well, I know LinkedIn for sure and a couple of other places, Twitter, and I'm fascinated. Well, I'm very fascinated in what's going on in India anyhow, both socially, economically, and politically. Probably the fastest growing middle class in the world, a lot going on. I personally have never been to India myself. When I was on active duty, I had the pleasure of serving with some very professional Indian Army officers, and had a couple of friends that were in India for extended period of time, working with large international companies. So there you go.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And yes, India has got the fastest growing middle class, definitely, and that's what is the strength. Many people say that you have more than 1.3 billion population, but we say that's our strength. That's the lever is always a strength for us. Now, 2020 was definitely a bad year. So with this COVID-19 falling apart, most of the economy were on the shutdown. India imposed the biggest lockdown. We were inside our home for almost 3 months, April, May, and June last year. But from July onwards, we started resuming activities. I'm basically from a travel background. I have a travel company, and believe me, travel really suffered. But
Oh, I'm sure.
but thanks to our medical doctors and the paramedical staffs who have really helped us, they really served us, and we are in a better position now. The numbers are going down, the industries are opening, and a lot of tourist places are opening in India. But of course, we do have international restrictions. We cannot travel to all the countries from India as of now. Hardly 7 or 8 countries we have got the connect. But good thing is that economy is picking up from October onwards. Most of the industries have started functioning, the consumption has increased, and best part is that the domestic tourism, although international tourism has not picked up yet, but domestic tourism has really picked up. Apart from that, India has also started the largest vaccination program. Our Prime Minister has inaugurated it this year, and in the first run, the medical people and the paramedical people will get first, followed by the common mass. So that's a very, very optimistic move inside our country, and we are very optimistic.
It's perfect. I love working with people in other cultures, and I feel fortunate to be able to do that, and having traveled around the world myself. But I also feel kind of sorry for people who haven't had the opportunity, and you don't have the same perspective. You don't understand that people are people, and all the things that are going on. I suspect you do a lot of work with Europe, the UK, running programs out of there, tourist programs and the like, and probably the Aussies and that area of the country too, also, or the world.
Well, honestly speaking, yes, working with a different culture, with different, priorities and different social system, it's always a pleasure to know a lot of other things as well. I've been from the travel industry. I have a travel company, and we are mostly into international travel. So while conducting tours, we have interacted with a lot of the people from other culture, especially from Asian countries, South Asian countries like Thailand,
Okay.
like Malaysia, like Singapore. So that's the base for India. And of course, in the Western side, we do have Dubai and all. So it's always good to interact with different people across the culture. And of course, and interesting part is that we learn a lot of things from other people, especially when, right now I'm interacting with you, probably is more than thousands of kilometers we are apart, but, interacting with you. And likewise, when we interact with other people of other culture, there are a lot of learnings which we get, and it's always better. It's always good to learn from them, to see how they are doing. And best part is this interchange of culture, that interchange of knowledge and interchange of culture, that really keeps us apart from everyone. This not only for us, for everyone on this planet. With interchange of culture, we grow rich, we enhance ourselves, we get something positive from others. So that's again a positive. It's a very optimistic part, I must say.
Well, that's why we do what we do, and we're entrepreneurs, and there aren't as many as us as there are as everybody else, but that's fine. We understand that. Basically, on what you just said is what got me interested in writing about money behavior. And I became very frustrated being traditionally trained in economics and finance and the like, that it was discounting what you just described, the cultural differences, the behavioral differences, but the commonality is the biology. We are human as a species, and we're always going to default to that. Then what I write about is then you factor in your belief set, which is where you grew up primarily, well established by mid-adolescence, and then the cultural impact is huge. And as the world gets smaller and you see more travel, the differences become less of an issue. They become less absolute and dogmatic. And normally, particularly dealing with tourists, we find out that we're all very different, but we're all very similar. A lot of the behavior when you throw everybody on a bus is pretty much the same. The spending may be different, what they are focused on, but the basic core behaviors is not that different from bus to bus, I would say. And that's how I got started writing about money behavior, because I got very frustrated with trying to put everybody into very distinct boxes and assume people are going to, number one, be rational, and that culture and belief sets don't matter. And I think that's ridiculous.
Well, let me say, we all are trained in a traditional way. Probably the education system goes like that. We have to study a designated syllabus, and once we are out of our, schools, of colleges or institutes, educational institute, that's how we get a feel of what the real world is. We get a feel what is there outside the textbooks. Now, I was interacting, in fact, not interacting, I was seeing one of the videos in YouTube of Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Right.
And he said, the traditional form of education misses a lot of things. It's a very designated syllabus, very age-old syllabus. It's not very changes which are happening. So it gives a miss to a lot of things. So when you move out, when you explore the thing, that's how you see the real world. I'll just give you an example. I had a tourist from Florida. Now, I stay at Kolkata. Kolkata is a very hot and humid place. And all of a sudden it starts raining, and we hardly has got 2 or 3 months what we say as winter, because at this point of time you will find I'm wearing a coat. But had it been a couple of months after, probably April or May, I cannot wear this coat because it's 40 degrees Celsius in Kolkata.
That's
so I was interacting with one of the tourists who came to Kolkata, and he was from Florida. And I can really see he was sweating and all these things. So I, out of curiosity, said, so you must be feeling very, very uncomfortable in Kolkata because of this hot and humid climate. He said, no, never think like that. I'm from Florida, and Florida climate is exactly the same. So there are a lot of similarities between Florida and Calcutta. And of course, there are cultural differences, which he really enjoyed. And so that's what, coming back to you, what exactly you said, when we go out, when we come out of the textbook, when we come out of our schools, we find a lot of differences. That's how we explore the world. So we interact with a lot of, nationalities, a lot of people from different nations, and that's how we learn from each other. You will always find there are a set of differences, and there are also a set of similarities. So that's what, a mix of similarity, or rather I must say it's an amalgamation of both the parts, the part of similarity and the part of differences. That's how the human race is. That's how human race thinks, and everyone has got a brain, has got a heart, and of course the whole biology is same. But it's the culture which makes a difference. The culture is the fantastic things, and it creates a difference. It creates a similarity, and that's how the human race lives.
Oh, I agree 100%. The issue only comes down to the probably less than 5% at the ultra extremes, both right and left, that seem to muddle things up on a daily basis. But most of us that gravitate towards the middle, I love it because you get to know folks, regardless of the language. You can figure out how to work together. You can figure out how to eat together. You can figure out how to entertain each other and socialize. So I find that amazing. When I was in Japan, I lived on the economy, didn't speak Japanese, and we had a wonderful experience. So it's mindset. My philosophy is very simple: have an open mind, a sense of humor, treat everybody with dignity, and generally it's going to work out.
You have rightly said, lot of differences, and of course it does work out. And at one point of time, I was in Thailand, and I have gone out for a training because I'm basically from hotel background. I have worked in different hotels for around 9 years or so, and then I left hotel and started my own travel company. And that's what. And recently I started one more company dealing with handicrafts and handmade stuff of India. But I'll come to that a little later. Now, I have traveled to a place called Phuket, that is in Thailand, and I have interacted with a lot of people, including Chinese, including Japanese, and a lot of Asian people. And what I have noticed, that if I travel, say, 100 kilometers, thing changes. The eating habit changes, the speaking, the dialect, the language, everything changes. And once out of fun, one of my Chinese friend was teaching me how to eat noodles with sticks, 2 sticks, and believe me, me being an Indian, I'm very comfortable with fork and a spoon and a knife, of course. But eating with 2 sticks, and I was just taking the name of a god. Okay, please leave me. Enough. I cannot go ahead with this training. But that was fun after all, and that's how we come to know about the differences. But yes, there are little extremes as well. Little extremes on the left, little extremes on the right. But yes, we have to take a middle path to go ahead and mingle and to go ahead, of course.
Right, and work through that. I agree. I tried to order your book, and it seems to be on Amazon India, but it's not available in US dollars that I could tell. And what's the conversion rate right now? US dollar to your currency.
Okay, US dollar to our currency, I must say it's around 72, 73 rupees. That means $1 is something around 72 or 73 rupees. And I think, yes, we have applied for Amazon worldwide, that is Amazon.com enrollment in Amazon. I think it is still pending. We have done a couple of follow-ups, but I think because of this COVID-19 situation and lockdown, the thing is getting delayed. So I think very soon my book will be available in Amazon.com as well.
Yeah, the gap is closed since the last time I checked. That's good. So one of the problems I have, the books that I write deal about people and money, and what is fun about what I do is the premise is universal. You're dealing with people, and I've found that what I write about it's appropriate for all human beings. The variable is the culture, but it's been validated in the premise that we as humans will always act human with our money. That is a default. Our primitive brain kicks in. I call it the feeling brain versus the thinking brain, but that's what makes us who we are. And we try to transcend all these issues. When I talk to people about money, when you're dealing with your clients, the tourists, they have very human behavior. And once you understand that, it tends to transcend everything. So what I'm doing tends to be universal. I would submit, I would like to try to get a copy of your book, even if it's electronic, at some point to read it. And you're doing some, not only yourself, but some of the folks you're interacting with are doing some fascinating things with entrepreneurship. And that's an area of interest to me also. We do a lot of behavioral work with entrepreneurs, and our research indicates that entrepreneurs really are wired different. They're cut from a different cloth, which is good, sometimes bad, gets us into trouble every now and then, but there is a kind of a unique mindset, a behavioral focus that works with entrepreneurs. And some people have no business going in that direction, and some people would go out of their minds with a job. So you have to balance that. But I've been talking with a financial advisor out of Singapore, and he's got the same perspective. He works with money. A lot of his clients are high end. They've got a fair amount of money, and I'm finding that there's also a tremendous amount of commonality with what we're talking about with commerce, economics, and finance. If you follow the path of the old British Empire, there's a commonality there with regard to how we do things, the way we interact, the way we conduct business, which makes things very simple once you get through the language discipline. And then most of us are all trained in a lot of the same principles with economics and finance, and it's just how things get done. So we are more alike than we are different.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. Yes. When I was with hotel, because for 9.5 years I was with hotel, I was working with hotels. Now then I have shifted to my own business. That's how the shift was on. And during every day, probably in a week or something like that, I used to note down my experiences in business while doing my entrepreneurship. From the job to entrepreneurship, what are the points I should write and all these things. So at the end of the day, probably for 7-8 years, I find it my diary is completely full. I used to write a page or a couple of pages. So then it suddenly struck me, why don't I convert this into a book? It can help a lot of other people. So when this lockdown and everything was there, so I was inside the house, but although physically I was inside the house, but my mind was definitely in. So mind was roaring around. So what should we do? So I started penning down in an organized way, how should we go for entrepreneurship? So in a very, very simplified term, I wrote this book. And yes, I have also discussed about money and how should we, how should we gain money in business, probably cutting down the expenses, how to increase revenue, yield management, and all these chapters I have covered in this book. So it is exactly the same whether I'm writing it on the topic entrepreneurship or you are writing on the topic money. It's basically there will always be a common point together. There has to be a common link at some point or other. It's interrelated, it's interlinked, absolutely. Now, my book is more into entrepreneurship. What are the problems entrepreneurs face? What are the problems a new business, what we call a startup? Startup is a new term. So what are the problems they face and how should they come out of it? Now, one more topic I have touched in this is the self-development. So in every field, whether it's in an investment banking, whether it's job or whether it's business, entrepreneurship, whichever, a lot of self-development things are important. We have to keep fighting. Their inner self at times keep fighting. There are different issues popping up, how to keep calm and how to face that issue. We should not lose our nerves. And so these all things are there. It's for everyone, whether it's an investment banker, whether it's a businessman or whosoever is this entrepreneur, everyone faces the same problem. So I have dedicated a chapter in my book about self-development. Apart from that, there are different other topics which I have mentioned and which can really help. I have put my views, my experience, and a lot of other case studies also, which I have put in my book. So if I consider money-mindedness and business-mindedness, so it's not very difficult. It's not very different. It's not very difficult. And there will always be a common link at some point or another. We say the businessman make money. We work for money. Everyone work for money. But at the same time, at a certain point, money has to work for us. So this is what exactly the first chapter of Robert Kiyosaki mentions in his book, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The poor people work for money, and for rich people, money works for them. So somehow or other, we have to refer that, somehow or other, we have to bring ourselves to that point.
Yeah. And I don't know, in the Indian culture, here in the States, we do an abysmal job of teaching financial literacy, economics and the like. It may be touched on a little bit in high school. Should you go to college? You may have to take one course, but it's generally an elective. So it becomes kind of a self-selection process that those that are interested in finance, maybe a little bit more analytical, whatever, moving the economic business track, and the other folks go in different directions. But I think it's a throwback to the post-World War II model, where basically education was designed to teach people to be good employees, to be part of the production process primarily, and fit into a certain area. And at the time, most folks worked for the same employer for years, cradle to grave type of philosophy, and that's it. But that's changed. And I have a chapter in my book about, I believe strongly that the mindset has to be that today everybody is self-employed. I don't care where you are, what you're doing. When you were working in the hospitality industry, you were self-employed. You're receiving a paycheck, but you're exchanging your skill set, your knowledge, your time in exchange for maybe some security and an income, but you were fundamentally self-employed. You could have been let go on a minute's notice for a lot of conditions you have no control over. So in my book, what I tell people that there are four things that you have to come to grips with when you're dealing with money. Number one, your biology. Your biology, we as humans will always act very human with our money. Eons of evolution or whatever, the behavior that kept us alive in the forest is killing us at the shopping mall or the market. I mean, it's just human behavior. So we are wired to stay alive and pass on our genes, not do taxes and figure out spreadsheets and do planning. So that's number one. Number two is our belief set. We talked about that. And that's established by where you grew up and mid-adolescence. Next is your culture, which is hugely, hugely important. The next piece is the rules of money exchange. What worked and what was the conventional wisdom as little as 5 and 6 years ago is not appropriate today. And the game changer is technology. This is a great example. 5 years ago, we would not have known, nor would we have cared if either one of us existed. We were working on parallel planes and parallel programs, pretty much saying very, very similar things, but neither knew nor had the opportunity to come in contact. So you have to come to grasp with that basic foundation. So what I do, what I talk about and what I work with is once you understand the basic foundation of biology, belief set, culture, and the rules of change, now you have to have a system or a plan. And that's where, in the second part of my book, I get into what I call it the money behavior system, which is a simple 5 steps process to help you understand what's important about money and how to move forward. And with your permission, I'll go through it very quick. First, it's the money values. What is truly important about money to you from an emotional value point of view? And it's usually not stuff. It's usually well-being, family, legacy, making a difference. So what are the true values? But more importantly, what's it going to cost? And if you don't achieve it, is it going to cause you emotional pain? Next is what I call your money temperament. Your money temperament is how you are naturally wired with money, how you feel and think about money, and it's a product primarily of your biology. And everybody's a little different. Are you naturally, do you get emotional satisfaction out of spending money or saving money? Risk averse, risk taker? Are you a maximizer, sufficer? Once you understand how you're naturally wired, accept it. That's who you are. And if you've got a spouse and children, you probably realize they're a little different than you are. But instead of on our system, we try to change your natural behavior, and it's very difficult and very frustrating. Next piece is how do you process information? I call this your money knowledge. It's not only your technical knowledge, but how do you like to learn? Are you a digital person? Are you auditory, visual? Because how you process information, you should demand that money information is delivered to you in a way you can process it. Once you understand that, that's who you are. Let's not fight it, let's accept it. Now you build a money strategy which complements your values, your temperament, and your knowledge, and then you build your plan. So what I write about in my system is the front end of, say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Any accounting course you've ever taken, any investment course you've taken, any entrepreneurial program you've gone into, I think you have to go up front and benchmark who you are from money temperament point of view, and then make sure you understand what you're good at, your strong points, and then you complement and overcome your blind spots by outsourcing, delegating, hiring people, or just say, you're not going to do that. I am never going to be a surgeon. I'm not even going to try. Okay. Even though they say with 10,000 hours of practice, I can master it. Well, you don't want me cutting you open. I guarantee it.
Well, I really agree with you that, the conventional form of education, let it be school education or even higher education, they are more concerned, or rather they make a person a good employee. I think that's what is there. In fact, exactly the same words I have heard from, Robert Kiyosaki. And I also follow another YouTuber, that is the Prince EA. Prince EA also exactly said this. He has made a video about the modern system of education, citing Einstein. And everyone is a genius, but if you actually want to evaluate a fish by its capacity to climb the tree, you will always find it's not good. So this is what. So 100% agree that this money management or money temperament, this should slowly get into the school curriculum. This is my personal view on this, because that's how we agree, that's how we evolve, that's how we improve ourselves, that's how we gain new age knowledge. Now this is one. Secondly, of course, that's what you said, this money making temperament or knowledge about this money making. So this is something which we need to study, everyone need to study, because we need to have, apart from coming out of this paycheck mentality and building own asset, being own self-employed, or you can say the income earning asset. That's what we call it, as income earning asset, the asset which gets us income, probably real estate from where we get money out of it, or whatever we take it as, probably the stocks, the share which gives us dividend, that money making assets. So many people do not know what are these money making assets. They even do not know how to make them, probably. So this is what is important. Probably I have not got into your book, but I was just fiddling around few of the chapters or few of the reviews. But yes, I think that's a great concept which you have taken. And I was going through some of the newsletters also. I think a lot of newsletter you keep on publishing on a daily basis, or probably on a regular basis. I would say that yes, you have picked up a very, very new concept, a nascent concept, and this is a much needed concept in today's world. In every part of the world, we have to know about money, because the economy, you take it as, on business you take it as, or any industry you take it as, it's very dynamic in nature. It goes up, comes down. So it's something like, peaks and valley, what the Spencer Johnson has mentioned. You will always find peak and valleys. Now with the knowledge about money, we can have more peak, frequent peaks, and less of the valley. But of course, this the curve of peak and valley, this will keep on going. So this money temperament, money knowledge, and of course this money making knowledge is also required. So I think this is a new age education system. Probably, I don't know when this will come in our school system or our education system, but self-help or the self-development books, like book of from different writers, probably your book as well. These are the great sources of knowledge, and with this book and by studying this book, we can really get something which is not there in our education system, which is not there in our school system. And probably we are optimistic that it should come up soon, so that people know about money, people can secure themselves, and probably the economy can get can really benefit from the ups and downs of economy. The downside of economy is not always bad. There are a lot of money-making incidents. When the market crashed in 2020, a lot of people made money because they bought a lot of share which was supposed to go up and all these things, and a lot of people made money. So when the economic cycle or the share markets go down or stock market goes down, it is not always bad. At times it is good, and at times it's a money-making opportunity. So
I agree 100%.
So these are all things which we need to learn from outside syllabus, and of course the book like yours can really be a boon for everyone.
Let's examine that a little bit. I would love to find a way for you and I to collaborate. I've got a book, I've got a website, I design training, and I'll defer to you on how to make that work. Either getting the book into India or through the website, some of the courses, things like that. Set it up. You become our agent in India, or that's up to you to figure out how to do it. But I'm on a mission to change the world, and change the world with our perspective on money. Money should be one size fits you, not one size fits all. And once you understand that and come to grasp with it, you can be just as successful. I'll go back to your business. There's some folks that were disheveled and looked like they didn't know what was going on, and they ran wonderful hotel operations and hospitality programs. And there are other people that were just the opposite, and they failed miserably. And they're both following the one size fits one approach, where what I tell people is I'm the front end to everybody's program, the piece that's missing, which is the behavioral piece. So people ask me, how do you make money? And I say, what you do is you first have to benchmark and know who you are. What is your natural money temperament? How are you going to think and feel about money in different circumstances, and then understand that? But don't fight it, embrace it. So if you tend to be risk adverse, just understand that, and then put protections in place to protect you not only emotionally, but also financially. And we don't do that, because every program I've ever been through, and there are literally millions of books on money, millions. And almost all of them say pretty much the same thing as to, I'm talking, financial wellness, financial literacy, and the like. If, start a budget, save some money, avoid debt, purchase, assets, not liabilities, generate passive income, and we're all going to be a gazillionaires and life is good. Well, why isn't it working? It's not working because we're not addressing the front end. The front end is first understand what makes you tick. What is your money temperament? How do you naturally think and feel about money? Spend some time understanding that, and then don't fight it. Most people spend an entire life being frustrated because everybody says you should be going in this direction with your money, but you're not wired to do that. And the stories I already tell is you meet somebody on an airplane, and the person is making a fortune, and they figured out Netflix 20 years ago, and they figured this, that, and the other thing, and you're going, why can't I do that? Well, when you really get to sit down and talking to the person, you may technically be able to do it, but emotionally no. And a lot of the recommendations I see when I work with financial advisors, they make recommendations that are absolutely appropriate from a compliance point of view, from a technical point of view, from a financial point of view, but incredibly inappropriate based on temperament. Because what you're recommending, not only is it going to scare this person to death, they probably don't have the natural emotional skill set to follow it through. So I'm not saying they can't do this. I'm saying you've got to have a different strategy. And that's what we're missing. We're trying to make this one size fits one approach that everybody has to look alike, act alike, and do the same thing, when in reality, that becomes frustrating, emotionally challenging, and often doomed to failure for reasons most people don't know. Because and the answer is, take another course on the web, read another book, take another class, and you're just getting the same thing in a different way, when all you should be doing is going, wait a minute, I have a natural propensity to be a risk taker. Okay, that's very cool in some areas. However, I have to figure out how to put some natural brakes on. I need somebody to find the blind spot. So I need to surround myself with people that understand my blind spot and are going to help me overcome my natural tendency to do stupid things for myself with my money and go, aha. And the other side, it might be a person who is very risk adverse. You need somebody that says, it's okay to move in this direction. We will put safety into this program. We will put you into something. And in the end, we often end up in the same place, but we got there in a different direction.
Well, I think it's a very, very valid point which you just said, Ted, that money temperament need to be discovered first, because a person cannot do everything. If you ask me to do probably a surgery, I'll not be able to do that because that's not my forte. So exactly. So like that, first what one need to do is to find out the money temperament. In what way the psychological temperament, I must say, because everyone cannot do everything, because you have to find out the forte. What is the forte a person is having? Just like you said that why can't I do this 20 years back? But yes, technologically I can do this, but of course emotionally I won't be able to do this, because that's what is the finding out one's temperament. We call it as finding out ikigai. Ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese term that says as the purpose, what is the purpose
Right.
to be. So that is the ikigai. That's a Japanese term. So what is my ikigai? So if I'm a travel expert, probably if I run a travel company, so my ikigai is travel, or probably my ikigai is entrepreneurship. I can talk about travel, I can talk about entrepreneurship. So these two things. But if you ask me to talk about probably history, I'll not be able to. If you ask me to talk about law, I'll not be able to, because that's not my ikigai. So finding out the money temperament, or finding out one's ikigai, is something which is of topmost priority, and people miss the priority, because what happened, we miss our basics. And my mentor always used to say, you get into basics. The moment you miss basic, you are missing everything. So likewise, finding out the ikigai, or probably the temperament, is something which is of utmost importance. Maybe because I have even seen people starting up a business with no interest in this. Probably a person who is a techie starting something, your company of articrafts or handicraft. So there is no link. A person who has done his engineering degree, a tech degree, and starting with an articraft, handicraft company or an art company, there is no link. There is no link of any interest. So how the person can survive like that? So that's what exactly said, that mindedness, the mindset need to be first changed, need to be nurtured, and that's how we can make our first step forward. I think your book, I'm looking forward for this, of course, and definitely your book addresses that.
Well, I got excited when you and I connected, following your background, listening to your tapes, and my belief is that we're kind of kindred spirits, separated by a few thousand miles or 10,000 kilometers, and that's what to make this thing wonderful. The challenge now is, how do you take what I'm doing and translate it into your culture, your economic flow, your system? And I would be more than willing, we need to sit down and discuss that. Again, what I'm trying to do is launch a movement, to be very candid, with like-minded people that, and you do what I just discussed to you for my book, you do this intuitively. You figured this out on your own. You are following your value set, money values. You're achieving your money values through your application of your money temperament, money knowledge, and you develop a strategy. Intuitively, because you're successful, you have done this. I have found that most entrepreneurs, most successful people I've talked to, have figured out how to do this. But what is usually missing is the ability to pass this on and make it portable. So it's very painful emotionally and financially, to this trial and error approach that we tend to go through. There's a lot of carnage along the way, emotional, physical, and economic. Plus, there are a lot of entrepreneurs I work with are terrible at passing on information, are terrible at training subordinates and passing and capturing what got them to where they are and moving it on, because they're looking at it like it's just a technique. You just read my manual and follow my timeline, it'll be okay. Again, what they're missing is the unique temperament. You and I, because of what we're doing and what we're talking about, we are unique in this world, but there are others like us. So if we stood up and said we want everybody thinking and acting the way we are with money and our vision, we would fail miserably. But teaching people to understand that they're unique and capturing and channelizing that uniqueness, they can thrive. So what I'm telling people is, discover your money temperament, manage your behavior, then your money, and thrive. Or to use an economic formula, the standard economic formula for wealth creation is time, money, rate of return. I add a new element, behavior. So it's time, money, rate of return divided by behavior. And behavior is the most important component. Your behavior is managed once you understand your temperament. And I was a financial advisor for years. I sold my practice and I'm doing this full time now. And I've worked with hundreds of private clients, and I've worked with a lot of people in groups. And I just got very frustrated just regurgitating the conventional wisdom, which I gave to you before, glad you're here, work with a pro, do a budget, blah, 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 blah. But people are still failing miserably. And it was the 2008 meltdown when I finally realized that we had to do something different. And I wrote my first book back then, primarily for my clients. That book was read by a very successful entrepreneur in the United States, J. Alexander Martin, who built the Fubu Empire, which is clothing and community. And he was just a basket case with money. Read the book and said, we need to get together. He and I wrote a book using my strategy with his behavior, and he's now back on track. And then I released the current book, actually just as the COVID was starting, which kind of followed things up a little bit. But the current book is to get out there and say, listen, as we come out of the COVID, this is a great opportunity. It really is. And you hit it when we first got started. This is an incredible opportunity to re-examine how we're doing business, to examine what's important, to sit down and go through the money behavior system to say, okay, what truly is important about money to you? And it's usually, again, it's not stuff. It's not a bigger car, bigger house, better clothes. And I don't care what it is. That's not the point. It's unique to you. And if you think that the most important thing in life to you is to be able to support a national or a regional cricket team and take them to the regional finals with your name wearing your jersey, fine. Who am I to say that's wrong? If that's where you want to go, and you might want to check with your family before they think that's a good idea. But the point is, that's your passion. That's what you want to do. I'm not going to say that's right or wrong. But if that's what you want to do, there's a strategy that needs to be put in place that accommodates how you think and feel about money to get you to the point so you've got the money to be able to do that. We don't talk that way. We talk about goals. You need a bigger house. You need a bigger car. You need a better college. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that you're not getting to the emotional need for that. And that's what you need to get into. Once you understand that, then you crank yourself into the traditional execution phase, which, yeah, you do need a budget. Yeah, you do need a bank account. Yeah, you do need to have some capital. Yeah, you have to have your spending under control, and you have to have a plan to execute it. But you do it based on your money values, which is the foundation of where you're going. And the only way you can achieve your values is by understanding your temperament. And the only way you can execute your temperament is to understand how you process information. And if you put that in place, the rest of it is pretty darn easy, because there are 3 million books out there that can teach you how to do it. And lots of people running around that are more than happy to give you advice how to open a checkbook and how to invest in something. But what they're not helping you is, hey, you got this little quirk about yourself with money. I'm not going to say it's good or good, but it's unique to you. We need to address that. And we need to figure out how to leverage it, both good and bad. Because if we don't get it under control, you're going to lose a lot of opportunity. And worst case is you're going to spend yourself into the ground. Let's get started.
Well, one good pointer which I got from you is this: behavior is a very vital point with this. Now, we have seen that, this traditional education which I have been talking about, which is not there in colleges and everything, probably the regular economic lessons, probably the commercial lessons, it doesn't talk about the practical aspect of money. So this is, it's my personal view on this. And a lot depends on behavior, because 2008, I remember I was there in job, and thank God I was in job. I was not thrown out. And positive part was India was not that affected, because India has got a lot of domestic consumption because of the growing middle class. It was affected because one cannot remain aloof. But 2008 was really terrible. really, really terrible. In our lifestyle, probably during our work time, probably that is one of the worst, apart from 2020, that is one of the worst situation which we have seen. A lot of, people lost job, but yes, I was in job, thank God for that. Probably my performance was good, so the hotel has kept me in their payroll. But you have rightly said, the most of the people are actually working for payrolls, paycheck followed by they spend, and they again come back to the where they have started from, that is square one. So this change need to be done. This change has to be there. Now, this change will not happen all of a sudden. Probably that tradition which was there, the traditional systems there, it can't be changed all of a sudden. Probably with regular knowledge, with the new age knowledge imparting, which you are doing, the new age books, the mindsets are changing. People are, even if it's 1%, they have become money conscious nowadays. It's what we have seen 20 years back and what we are seeing today. Of course, there is a difference. But yes, this has to go on. The more knowledge needs to be imparted, and more change of mindset and change of behavior has to be there. Now, one more aspect is this: person has to come out of their daily cycle, because they get up, they get into work, they struggle with traffic, they do a lot of other works and come back to the family after work, and probably they get exhausted, and that's the end of the day. So first thing, what they have to first find out a time to improve themselves. This is number one. Unless we get more knowledge, we cannot change our mindset. Mindset can only change, because frustration do not change the mindset. People get frustrated, people get burnt out, and they do a lot of bad things. They get into drugs, they get into so many things, but frustration do not change people. Number one, person's mindset has to change, person's behavior has to change, and person has to get some new age knowledge about money, knowledge about new ideas. Once the fresh knowledge enters their mind, then only their thinking process starts changing, their behavior starts changing, they start thinking of money, start thinking of improving their life, they start looking into their future. They come out of that, what we call it as an activity trap, right? From activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, they get into a trap, the daily trap of activity. The person has to come out of their activity and look into a new dawn. So that is what people have to do this. People have to read new book like your book, or probably book of a lot of authors are there. They have to get a new age knowledge. They have to come out of their traditional behavior, daily behavior. They have to come out of their activity trap. So that can really change the world. That can really change. It can change the thinking a person can, even if the person is working, person did not quit their job and start something new, but while they are in their jobs, earning their paycheck, they can do a lot of things. They have to just take out their money, get some good knowledge, and then start practicing that knowledge. Now, another disadvantage is that people get a lot of knowledge, they read a lot of books, but they don't do anything with that knowledge.
Right, you've got to execute.
So that's exactly. I read a lot of books, probably 30, 40, 50 books a year, probably, but I don't do anything with the knowledge which I earn. I just keep it in a bookshelf, and that's all. Okay, and I say, okay, I read around 30 books this year, I read around 40 books this year, but what's the use? You have to use the knowledge. You have to use the knowledge the writer or the author is imparting to you. So that's what is important. That changes the mindset. Once the mindset changes, then this money mentality, or I must say, let's not talk it as a money mentality, a new age development mentality. And of course, then the money mentality will come, then money, the persistence about money will come, this money mindedness will come. And of course, this will do good to the society, this will do to the economy, and this will do good to the country as well. Any country, let it be India, let it be United States, let it be any of the country of this world. So it has to change at the micro level. Micro level changes has to start from self. The Gandhi has said, Indians are the followers of Gandhi. We call it as the father of nation. And he said, the change which you are looking for, it has to start from you.
Exactly.
If I change, my family changes. If my family changes, the society changes. And if the society change,
Absolutely.
country change. So
Yeah, and this happens at the micro DNA level. It truly does. When you start making the changes, you actually, I've got papers and I've got research that shows that fundamentally, to make it simple, your hard wiring is modified by what you think and the environment you're moving into. And it's amazing.
absolutely, absolutely. So this change has to come from inner self, this micro level, as you said, the DNA level change, it has to go on. Now, once this change happens, of course, the behavior, the mindset, even if something is not taught in our regular education system, that people will start learning. But first thing is this micro level change has to be induced. So
Yep.
that's my point on this.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. When I first got into these projects, I thought we were going to do it top down, talk to the vice president of some big company, work with a bank. And I call it death by vice president, where when you come in, you talk to somebody on the 7th floor, you're actually kind of a threat. Unless what I'm bringing to them can enhance their position, they're not interested, or I become a threat because they didn't think of it. So it becomes very slow, very bureaucratic, and what I hear more often than not, we're already doing that. Well, they're not. What has to happen is a ground up epiphany and a change of behavior. So what I'm focusing on is folks on the ground who probably would never read a book on economics, would never read a book on finance, but probably should. People not wired like you and me. So what I write books that there's no money. I don't talk about numbers. There are no graphs, no arrows. There's not a product recommendation. I don't talk about the stock market. I use a metaphor of going to the market and your behavior going to and from the market, your interaction in your work environment. And I use very simple common sense stories to make people understand that it's all about your temperament and managing how you're naturally wired. I want to launch a movement where people read this book and start executing the Money Temperament program in the sense that they're walking into a financial professional and they're going, do you do this? And hopefully that person's smart enough to say yes. And then we move from there. But there are too many financial books out there that are written for you and me. That we like this stuff, we gravitate to this stuff, we read this stuff, and we can talk probably for hours about the nuances of some entrepreneurial theory or financial this or some product, where the average person could care less. What they want to know is what's going to happen on Friday and how am I going to get there and can I feed everybody and do I need the new upgrade on my phone? So, and I'm not saying that's bad, and I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but what I'm saying is if we're going to make a change, the change has to happen at that level. Rich Man, Poor Dad did that, where common people that would never read a book on economics were picking up his book, and his book was a condensed version of a book on finance that nobody would read. And they're going, hey, this makes sense. I bought a lawnmower and I used that lawnmower and I turned it into a means of production and I capitalized it. Now I brought somebody else in and now I'm mowing, I got a team that's mowing, acres of lawn every month and I'm making money. How'd that happen? Rich man, poor man. Own the means of ownership. So what I'm trying to say is let's get down to basics. Is okay, I don't care if you went to a concert and you bought, merchandise that was incredibly overpriced that you'll never wear again, and it only seems to look good when you're in other people at that concert. Okay, that's fine, but own it. But why did you make that decision? And non-consciously, you spent that money when you bought the ticket months in advance. You're non-consciously wired to go do that. 95 to 99% of our spending decisions are automatic, non-conscious, and automatic. And it's done in the feeling brain, the lower brain. We have to be consequential. We have to be deliberate in our consequential decisions. And that hurts emotionally. Our brain doesn't like that. When we go to the thinking brain, the frontal cortex, that's uncomfortable. We don't want to be there. We want to go there, do the taxes, and get out. We want to read the bank statement and get out. We want to be comfortable. Complacency. So you've got to understand that that's a natural cycle and that's cool. But what we need is an abrupt interrupt to go, whoa, wait a minute. What did I just see? When you're driving in your car, you're not consciously aware of how you got from point A to point B if it's a common route. But if something happens that's unique, that's an interrupt, that's an emotional interrupt. And you go, whoa, did you see that? The blue light, something happened. So we need to do the same thing with money. That we need to, and you hit it right on the head, there has to be an understanding that you've got to do something different. The status quo is not going to get you where you want to get. All it's going to get you, in my opinion, is victimhood. Now, if that's your choice, fine. But I have also, at my level, the ability to just kind of shut down that static about you complaining being a victim when you could have taken steps to modify your behavior and taken actions to take a better a stance. So, we go from there. But in my opinion, this whole movement has to be from bottom up. And it needs to be people that understand what we're talking about, go out and just say, hey, listen, just take a look at this. This is a different approach. And we kind of go from there.
Well, I think that's an excellent lesson which I got from you. This is a common thing, what we call as inertia. The Einstein's first law is the law of inertia. What is going on, we are happy with. That's what is the mentality which goes on. And they come back and complain that, okay, I should have done this 10 years back and all. So this inertia, we call it as behavioral inertia. This, what is going on, and I will not change. So till the time someone forces them to change, or someone says, okay, if you don't change, I'll fire you. So unless those forceful things are happening, I'll not change. So this is what is the behavioral inertia which comes in. Now, this behavioral inertia is it's a natural instinct of a human being. Now, someone has got this instinct at a very high level, someone has got a little level out of it. Now, it's our conscious which really can, modify the level. If our conscious is good, we are energetic and we are ready to take some risk, get some knowledge and start a new path altogether. Of course, that inertia level will go down and vice versa. So this is number one. And number two is this: whenever, we see something traditional happening, we take it that is right. Okay, now what my parents were doing, what my grandparents were doing, I take it as right. Now, if I feel doing something new, that becomes a fear factor starts playing. Probably the fear of unknown starts playing. Okay, we know that our parents and grandparents have kept their money in bank, so that's good because they have kept their money in their bank, so that's good. So what if I put this on equity? So now that's a new step, and fear factor starts playing at the back of the mind. Okay, if I lose money, what will happen? So those are trusted. It comes as this trusted ways of keeping money. So keeping in the bank is a trusted way of keeping, because my parents have kept like this, because my grandparents have kept like that. Now, if I keep it on equity, there is a fear factor. There is a fear of unknown. So that's the point which keeps rolling, and that's how people are not willing to change. So that again draws to the level number one, the point number one, which I have just said. It's the law of behavioral inertia. We come back to the same point from where we started. Now, only thing, only way the person can break this is by doing a self-assessment and self-improvement. Person has to come out of their daily activity trap, which I already talked about. We have to come out of their activity trap. We have to get something new, know something new, and slowly implement that. So I say that, it's a lack of knowledge, lack of, right knowledge, or probably a little ignorance, which keeps them to the person to the traditional path. So that's my point on this. But at the same time, a lot of new things are happening. The world is dynamic, economy is dynamic, ways of investment has become dynamic, the business styles have become dynamic, because whatever we have been doing 20 years back, what probably my grandparents were doing, I cannot do the same. Because the time has changed, the requirement has changed, the cost of living has gone up, inflation has gone up, the value of money probably devaluated. So all these things, the changes are happening, because change is the law of nature. We all know that.
Yep.
So the change is the only thing which is constant, and based on that we have to change our behavior, our style of working, style of keeping money, style of earning money, everything, and the style of investment, everything has to go to the change. So the let me give an example. The ways of investment for our grandparents were completely different than the ways of investment what we are having. Probably our children, probably our next generation will have a different set of investment plan. It's completely different from what we are doing. So like this change is there, but this change takes in a very, very slow motion. It's at a snail's pace. So that is the thing. And a lot of push is required, so that people don't regret not changing 10 years later. So this is my viewpoint on this. But yes, the change is required. People need to look into newer ways of making money. Whatever we say, the passive income and all those things, slowly that will also become obsolete at some time or other. The new ways will come across. Money will keep rolling, of course, whether it is as in form of paycheck, in form of investment, in form of stocks, it will keep rolling. In form of assets, whatever you take it as, it will keep rolling. Money temperament has to be there. Money mindedness has to be there, as rightly told by you, that the behavioral change has to be there. Then only we can cope up with the regular changes. We cannot sit back and live with a 20-year-old mentality. Our mentality has to change. Our thinking process has to change. And of course, the money mindedness has to change as well. New ways of making money need to be inculcated, need to be explored, and of course, need to be implemented in our life as well.
Perfect. You just described money temperament based on historical perspective, belief set, culture, and biology. As I said earlier, intuitively, you're doing this. What I've done is taking what you've talked about, codified it, put it into a system in an easy to read book, training package to go with it, and we're off and running. So I think you've got a culture and economy right now that is ripe for what we're talking about. And your analogy of grandparents, parents, and yourself, you and your children. Let's go one step farther. The next generation, they're doing things that make your eyes open. And I would go back to your grandfather's generation that probably was the 40s and 50s to correspond, to try to develop a correlation for what they went through with money and behavior, and what you're doing now is amazing. There's a similarity. The behavior was the same. I mean, the emotions is they were still very human with their money, but because of what was going around them, the environment, the culture, the belief set, a lot of investment in tangible assets that were portable, gold. I would submit probably your grandparents were very much into owning precious metals in any form, often jewelry and the like. Well, then the next generation, because something changed in the environment, something changed in the culture, and their perception of risk changed, and they moved into another area. Now your generation is here and you've moved into another area, and your kids are going to be in another area after that. But it's a very, very human behavior in relationship with money, and it still comes down to spender, saver, risk averse, risk taker, maximizer, sufficer, and then the change agent comes in. And I'm a big believer that change is neutral. It's how it's managed. But most any society, any organization, I believe about 80% of the folks are there to defend the status quo. The change agent comes in, and it's usually immediately viewed as a threat. How it's managed depends on what's going to happen next. So the change agent comes in, let's say it's you and me, and we start a new dialogue. And then we move to a new order. And then that order codifies, and that becomes the new status quo. And 80% of the people then start defending that status quo until another change agent comes in and the cycle continues. So we have the opportunity, if we do this right, to be significant change agents that could fundamentally change the way I think the Indian middle class thinks and feels about money, their approach to money, and also the concept of financial wellness, financial literacy, and the piece that's missing. I'm doing this in the States. I'm, talking, the book is out there, but also working with financial institutions to have them change their mission statement as to what it means to be financially literate. It's understanding your temperament, it's managing your behavior, then using the product and services. So this is going to be fun. Well, I appreciate the time. This has been wonderful. It far exceeded my expectations. I never know what to expect when I get on some of these calls, but normally if you do a little bit of due diligence up front and you get to know them online, a little texting, you got a pretty good idea what's going on.
It's very nice interacting with you as well. A lot of good pointers we got.
Well, perfect. Yeah, and I'm open to your suggestions. And if anybody wants to see this tape, as far as I'm concerned, that's yours. Do what you please with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, you have a great day. It's later over there than it is here, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Have a great weekend as well. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you so much.